Hi everyone, it's Mel here and welcome back to Mel's Blind Life, a YouTube channel all about blindness. Today, as you have seen by the title, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about guide dog retirement, from how to tell whether your guide dog is about to need to retire, some general information about the life for the dog after retirement, and a little bit of specifics about how you come to that decision, and also a little bit about the paperwork and processes that have to be done through my guide dog school when it comes time to retire your guide dog. So let's get started with this video. Hi, this is Mel Stevens. Welcome back to Mel's Blind Life, the YouTube channel all about blindness. Now, as some of you will possibly know, my guide dog Darcy has only just recently retired. He retired about 3 weeks ago, nearly, on the 5th of February. So I'm not going to talk specifically about Darcy's retirement in this video, but I'm going to talk about guide dog retirement in general. If you want to see more about Darcy's retirement, please go and check out my other channel, Blinky Blogs, which I will link down in the description down below. And by the time this video is uploaded, there will actually be a playlist on there called Darcy's retirement. So when a handler gets a guide dog, from my school in particular, Guide Dogs Victoria, they are usually somewhere between 18 and 24 months of age. So the dog's general working life expectancy, the average, is between 8 and 10 years. Now, some dogs may retire earlier than that, some dogs may retire later than that, but it is generally around 8 to 10 years that they work, sometimes less, sometimes more, as I say. So guide dogs retire for many different reasons. They retire because of health conditions, they may retire because of the handler, they may retire because of their not wanting to work. There are several reasons. So it's really important that you attend all of your follow-up appointments with your guide dog school, and that you know the signs of illness, or both mental and physical, and confidence or lack thereof in your dog. So some guide dogs will retire very early. Some may decide that they don't want to work at 4 or 5 years of age, which I have seen happen. And how do you know whether a guide dog doesn't want to work anymore? Well, there's a lot of common signs. Not wanting to put the harness on. So our dogs love working, they love going into their harness. As soon as you get that harness out, and if the dog is very happy to put that harness on and to go out and do work, and their tail's wagging and their head's up and they're very excited, then that is a really good sign. But if they begin to stop showing that excitement, if they begin not to guide out as well as they used to, if they begin to walk slower, or not do as good a job, maybe start bumping your right shoulder on things, if they show a lack of enthusiasm, if they try and turn around and go back home, all of these kinds of things, this might be signs that your dog is ready to retire because they don't want to work. Now, illness is a completely different story and a completely different situation. we are recommended to get our dogs vet checked once every, well, I think it's only 12 months, but I'm going to say 6 to 12 months because I'm not 100% sure. It may have changed since I got my first dog. So we are recommended to get our dogs vet checked every sort of, regularly, I'm just going to say. So health is a completely different story. If the vets pick up anything that is concerning for them, then they will notify you as soon as they pick that up. And as soon as the vet has picked up that there is something concerning, then they will investigate it and write a report for your guide dog school. Now, if it's a non-life-threatening disease, they will let you know. If it's a life-threatening disease, they will let you know. And it, in these situations, is essentially the vet and the guide dog school's call as to whether your dog is retired. I have never actually gone through this situation myself. Darcy being my first guide dog, he just stopped working because he just didn't want to work. So he wasn't sick or anything. So that was the situation there. But that's what can happen with some dogs, is if they get sick, the guide dog school and the veterinarians can make the call whether it's suitable for that dog to continue working. Now, there are some cases which are extremely sad that the dogs pass away before they get a chance to retire. I have heard of dogs who, are starting to show signs of illness. They go in for surgery to, sort of explore and see what is causing them to be ill, and they die under the anaesthetic. Unfortunately, I have heard of regular vet work happening, and the dogs unfortunately don't make it through the anaesthetic. But those cases are rare, that the dogs don't make it through the anaesthetic. It's like people, things can happen under anaesthetic. Dogs are the same in that regard. But it's very rare that it does happen, but unfortunately that does happen. So when it's time for a guide dog to retire, there will be much conversation between the handler, the handler's family, and the guide dog organisation. They will talk with you about whether, what signs you have been observing that your dog isn't ready to continue working anymore. They will see your dog work and make their own assessment. They will, try and talk through strategies to help you. If your dog is showing a lack of confidence, it might just be in one area, so they might try and help you find strategies to continue making your dog a bit more confident, things like that. So, but then they may decide that retirement is the best option. So when your guide dog is coming up for retirement, there are a few things that you have to do. You have to decide what you are going to do with your dog when it retires. Now, I need to make a side note here, and this is the unfortunate reality of guide dog mobility, is that not all matches work. Some clients, and once again, this is very rare as well, but some clients just have a bit of trouble with their dog, or the client themselves may become ill, or something like that may happen when the dog is still working very well, but for some reason or another isn't working out with that particular handler that they've been matched with. The dog may go back to the guide dog training facility and rematched with another client. I have seen that happen before. I have seen and heard of people moving overseas and they can't take their dogs, so they hand their dogs back when they're still a good working age and the dog gets retrained and rematched with a client. The match doesn't work out, so for some reason or another the dog and the client just aren't getting on, and the dog isn't working to its full potential with the client, so the guide dog organisation and the client may decide to send that particular dog back and to have another go at a different match. There might be something that happens to the client may become ill or unable to use the dog. I have heard of people, who may have falls or strokes or something, who can no longer use the dog, and in some situations the dog may be able to be retrained and rehomed as a working guide dog. So those are situations that also happen. As I said, that is very rare, but they do happen as well. So when you and the guide dog organisation and possibly the vet, if it is an illness thing, have decided that your dog is due to retire, what will happen is you will have to decide what's going to happen to your dog. So some clients have to or decide to return their dog to the guide dog organisation so that they can find the dog a new home. That happens if people can't find a family member or a friend who want the dog and can't look after themselves, or I have heard of some cases where the client just, can't face seeing the dog again after they've worked with them for 6 or 8 or 10 years, and they just don't want to see the dog again, and so they give the dog back to the guide dog organisation to be rehomed, things like that. So the dog can either go back to the guide dog organisation and they will find a home for the dogs. A lot of times the first choice is the contacting the puppy raiser and seeing if they want the dog back before they find another home for the dog. Then if the handler can't actually keep the dog themselves and wants to still be able to see them, what can happen is they can find a family member or a friend who can look after their dog and they can still see their dog. I have seen that happen a lot. People send their dog to family or friends and they still get to catch up with them on the weekends or on the holidays and things like that. So one example of that is my auntie sent one of her retired dogs to live with another auntie of mine, and so she got to see him, quite regularly. And the other option, which is the option that I have chosen and will probably choose for as many of my dogs as possible, is that the handler actually gets to keep the dog and they basically stay with each other until death do us part, which is what the situation is with myself and Darcy. I am keeping him until he crosses the rainbow bridge. And that is what has happened with a few of the other dogs that my mother has had, scratching my nose, that my mother has had as I was growing up. So when that decision is made and it's time for the dog to retire, it is time to fill out the paperwork. So there's a little bit of paperwork that happens with guide dog retirement, and I'm not going to talk about guide dog reapplication and assessment. That is another video to come at another time. But if you were immediately applying for a new dog, or if you knew that your current dog was coming up for retirement and you didn't want to have a gap between the two dogs, you would do the application process. But upon retirement, there are 2 forms that you need to sign, and this is organisational specific, this stuff that I'm about to talk about now. So, as I said, my organisation is Guide Dogs Victoria, Their link is down in the description down below. So the two bits of paperwork that have to be signed is firstly an internal piece of paper that basically says the handler, the instructor, the dog, and the action is to retire the guide dog and what will happen to the dog, so whether the dog is being retained by the handler, whether it's being taken back by the guide dog school, or whether it's being taken by a family or friend. So the handler has to sign that piece of paper, which also has written in it, I'm pretty certain, that the handler has to return the guide dog harness. So upon retirement with my school, Guide Dogs Victoria, you have to return your harness. Now this is because the harness is an identifying item. It identifies the dog as a working guide dog, and you can't use that harness when that dog is retired. There is actually a clause in the retirement form that says, you know, that you understand that this dog has been retired, you have returned its harness, and you have understanding that this dog is not allowed in public areas and has lost all access rights. So that is the first form that you sign, which is the internal form. And the second form that you sign is, here in Australia we have a thing called the Central Animal Records, and this is a place where all of the animal records for all of the animals in Australia that have microchips is stored. And it's basically a big sort of database, I guess you could call it, of animal registration details. So what happens with Guide Dogs Victoria is you sign a Central Animal Records change of ownership form, and what this does is this will change the ownership of the dog from Guide Dogs Victoria, who until such point as the dog is rehomed upon retirement belongs to Guide Dogs Victoria. So when the dog retires, the dog actually becomes the property of the person who is keeping the dog after its retirement. So Darcy was not mine until he retired. He was my working dog, but all of his ownership was still Guide Dogs Victoria. So upon his retirement, I signed the change of ownership forms for Central Animal Records so that he is now registered as being my dog. I'm his registered owner, once again, until death do us part. So when I get a new guide dog, I will own Darcy and I will be my new dog's handler, but according to the Central Animal Records, that dog will still belong to Guide Dogs Victoria. So they are the forms that you sign, and as I said, you return the dog's harness upon retirement. Now, there's another very important little bit of equipment that guide dogs have, which is their guide dog's tag. Now, Darcy has been permitted to keep his guide dog tag so long as it is removed from his collar and he is no longer able to be identified as a guide dog. So I have still got Darcy's guide dog medallion, and I'm not allowed to use it to identify him as a guide dog because he is not. So basically what happens now that the dog is retired is it stays with its new handler until death do us part. As I said, with a dog who retires because of illness, the decision is made between the guide dog organisation and the veterinarians, and it depends on the particular illness, you know, what happens to the dog, whether they pass away before they retire, whether they pass away after they retire, you know, whether they retire and then, you know, still live for a few years, a few months, a few weeks after they've, you know, finished working. That just depends on the individual situation. The other thing I must point out is that when you retire your guide dog, it's a stressful ordeal, and it's hard to deal with, but you know, you'll get through it. The guide dog organisation and your family and friends should support you at this time. Also, get the support of fellow guide dog handlers, you know, people who are in your guide dog class, people who, you know, are mentors to you that are guide dog handlers who have been through it before. You know, remember to just reach out and to get support for your guide dog retirement, because it is a difficult thing to deal with, and I could not have done it on my own, and I don't think anyone should. So that is it for this video all about guide dog retirement, everyone. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you have understood, all of my sort of rambling here. And please let me know in the comment section down below if you've got any questions, any experiences of retiring your guide dog that you want to sort of, you know, let us know about. If you've got a dog from a different school and, you know, maybe some differences that you've experienced in retiring your dog from how it was done through my school. And please remember to subscribe to my channel, click the notifications so that you get notified when I upload all of my videos. Remember to check out my Instagram, Darcy's Facebook, and my other YouTube channel, which are always linked down in the description down below. And I will see you all in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.